Hi all, welcome this session. Poverty is not an accident. Like slavery and apartheid, it is man-made and can be removed by the actions of human beings. The famous quote by Nelson Mandela. Today, I would like to discuss about the topic on Nelson Mandela, the great South African leader. Nelson Mandela was a South African anti-apartheid revolutionary and was a great political leader and a philanthropologist who served as the president of South Africa from 1994 to 1999. He was the country's first black head of the state and the first elected in a fully representative democratic election. His government focused on dismantling the legacy of apartheid by tackling institutionalized racism and fostering racial reconciliation. Ideologically, the African nationalist and a sociologist, he served as the president of African National Congress Party from 1991 to 1997. Nelson Mandela was born on July 18, 1918 into a royal family on Xhosa speaking Tembu tribe in the South African village of Mauso. His father, Galda Henry, served as a chief of this tribe, and his mother, Nosekeni Feni, was the third of Galda's four wives, who together bore him 9 daughters and 4 sons. After the death of his father in 1927, during that time he was only 9 years old. The first in his family to receive a formal education, Mandela completed his primary studies at a local missionary school. After that, he went on to attend the Clarkbury Boarding Institute. After that, Mandela fled to Johannesburg and worked first as a night watchman and then as a law clerk while completing his bachelor degree by correspondence. He studied law at the University of Witwatersrand, where he became involved in the movement against the racial discrimination and forged a key relationship with black and white activities. In 1944, Mandela joined the African National Congress. Mandela was the first in his family to receive formal education. We have already mentioned that when Nelson Mandela stand on education to insist the true power lies in knowledge. Mandela became the president of African National Congress. He managed to introduce universal free education to improve the living standard of the country's black population. Mandela was an ardent believer in the equal right and potential of the people of all origins and backgrounds. His courage in the face of oppression stands as an example of the power of passion and perseverance to change the world. Nelson Mandela was nearly executed for opposing the South African government segregational policies, and he was sentenced to around 27 years of prison for fighting to discriminate the country's apartheid regime. He spent his 27 years in jail at the brutal Robben Island prison, the coast of Cape Town, where he was confined to a small cell without a bed or plumbing. He was only allowed to see his wife Winnie Mandela, who had married in 1958 and was the mother of his 2 young daughters once in every 6 months. Mandela and his fellow prisoners were routinely subjected to inhuman punishment for the slightest of offences, among other atrocities. His magnanimity towards his former oppressors won the admiration of South Africans and people around the world and greatly reduced his country's transition to democracy. His lifelong pursuit of racial peace and reconciliation earned him the Nobel Prize in 1993. And the next year, Mandela became the first black president of South Africa in the momentous elections that for the first time allowed South Africans of all ethnic origins to vote. As we know that Nelson Mandela helped to bring an end to apartheid and has been a global advocate for human rights. A member of African National Congress Party beginning in the period of 1940s, he was the leader of both peaceful protests and armed resistance against the white minority oppressive regime in the racially divided South Africa. His actions landed him in prison for nearly 3 decades and made him the face of the anti-apartheid movement both within the country and internationally. Mandela released jail in 1990. He participated in the eradication of apartheid and in the 1994 became the first black president of South Africa. Mandela's administration inherited a country with a huge disparity in wealth and service between white and black communities. From at that time, the condition of South Africa was not good. African populations of around 40 million, around 23 million lacked electricity or adequate sanitation, and 12 million lacked clear water supplies, and 2 million children not in school, and one-third of the populations are illiterate. There was 33% of unemployment, and just under half of the population lived below the poverty line. From that period, Mandela, the reconstruction and the development program was started. In 1996, they implemented new policies, and they were started a lot of employment opportunities, and which maintained South Africa's try to develop a mixed economy, but placed an emphasis on economic growth through a framework of market economies and encouragement of foreign investment. That kind of effort which is very much useful for the development of South African economy. Under Mandela's presidency, we can see a steady increase in the welfare program. The government introduced parity in grants for communities, including disability grants, child maintenance grants, and old age pensions, which had previously been set at different levels of South African different racial groups. By the 1999 election, the African National Congress could boast that due to their policies, 3 million people were connected to telephone lines and 1.5 million children were brought into educational system. 500 clinics were upgraded or constructed. 2 million people were connected to the electricity grid. Water access was extended to 3 million people. And 75,000 houses were constructed, housing nearly 3 million people. The Land Reform Act of 3 of 1996 safeguarded the right of labor tenants. During those time, Mandela started a lot of welfare program for the enhancement of these downtrodden sections. In December 1994, Mandela published his autobiographical work, Long Walk to Freedom, based around a manuscript he had written in prison, and augmented by interviews conducted with American journalist Richard Stengel. After retiring from politics in 1999, he remained a devoted champion for peace and social justice in his own nation and around the world until his death in 2013 at the age of 95 from a recurring lens infection. Nelson Mandela led to the African National Congress in its negotiations with the governing National Party and various other South African political organizations for an end to apartheid and the establishment of a multiracial government. He also introduced numerous social and economic programs designed to improve the living standard of South African black populations. In 1996, Mandela presided over the enactment of a new South African constitution which established a strong central government based on the majority rule and prohibited discrimination against the minorities, including whites. Nelson Mandela remained a devoted champion for peace and social justice in his own country and around the world. In 2009, the United Nations declared July 18 Nelson Mandela's International Day in recognition of the South African leaders' contribution to democracy, freedom, peace, and human rights around the world. Mandela, identified as both an African nationalist and an ideological position he held since joining the African National Congress, and as a socialist. He was a practical politician rather than the intellectual scholar or political theorist. The famous historian Sabelo Nadlo Jatsheni described Mandela as a liberal African nationalist, decolonial humanist. Mandela was a liberal and stated that he displayed a hybrid socio-political makeup. Mandela adopted certain political ideas from other thinkers, among them Indian independence leaders like Gandhiji and Nehru, African American civil rights activist Nkrumah, and he tried to apply them to the South African situation. At the same time, he rejected other aspects of their thought, such as the anti-white sentiment of many African nationalists. I conclude that Mandela, it has been a lifetime of struggles. There was no easy to walk to freedom. It was truly a very long walk to freedom, and he was trying to overcome the barriers in the way to the freedom required a great moment of people's movement. His determination, brilliance, energy, and endurance, and above all his character, were major factors in securing the end of the apartheid and the gain of the new South Africa. As his longtime friend on Robben Island, Eddie Daniel, point out that Nelson Mandela is quite simply one of the greatest person in human history. Thank you very much.